Wow, that's pretty cool. Good morning. I want to take just a few minutes and talk to you about a lesson that I learned from my granddaddy. That's what we called him. It was my mom's dad, and he passed away about a week and a half ago, 38 days short of 100 years old. He lived in Knoxville, grew up there. I was blessed to be his grandson, and I learned many lessons by watching him. He was not really one of these guys who taught lessons by talking to you, but the way he lived his life said a lot. And one of the biggest lessons he shared through his actions is to be willing to try something new. He was naturally curious, always willing to take on a new challenge, even if he didn't know how to do it at the time. Before my time, looking at some pictures from the 30s and 40s and 50s, he built boats by hand to race on the brand new Norris Lake up above Knoxville. He built his own bows and arrows. He took up photography, and when I say took up photography, I'm not talking about taking your film to the drugstore. He built a darkroom and bought all the chemicals and taught me how to do that in the basement when I was growing up. At about the age of 70, he was the first member of our family to successfully complete a Rubik's Cube. And he taught several of us grandchildren how to finish it in the weeks and months after that. When he retired from the Southern Railroad at the age of 62, he decided to take on yet another adventure, woodworking. This is an example of his handiwork, and this is something that we proudly display on our mantle. That's carved out of one piece of wood, and it is slick as glass. And he regularly entered and won awards in a lot of woodworking shows. There's a fair in Knoxville called the TVA&I Fair, which is a big state fair, and he entered that a lot. And just really thrived on that for the remaining time of his life. So a couple of weeks ago, when we got together at the funeral home and had receiving friends, one of the most comforting touches at the funeral home was a collection of his wood carvings and photographs. There was probably 24 wood carvings and a bunch of his pictures up. And it really turned that time into a celebration of the richness of his life and through the way he'd spent his time and the new experiences that he had tried along the way. And I'll share one other example to give you a feel for his personality. My grandmother passed away when he was 86, and they lived together in a condo. And as far as I know, he had never cooked a meal, cleaned the house, or washed any clothes when she passed away. So we kind of wondered, how's this going to work out? Well, we found out a couple weeks later, because my mom called him at dinner time to check on him, make sure he was doing all right. And she said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm making a pot roast." And she said, "Well, why are you doing that?" He said, "Well, that's what I want to eat." He had found my grandmother's recipe book, and he figured it out. And he lived for another decade independently, cooking for himself, cleaning his own house, and taking care of all those needs. He didn't wait to know how to do something or feel completely prepared before he started. Now, if I had started wood carving, I'd probably start with, I'm going to make a box, or I'm going to make a stick. The first thing that he started with was, he got a little statuette of the Venus de Milo, a classic Greek sculpture, took pictures of it from every angle, carved it out, and then that was his first wood carving. And as you can see from this, he was big into intricate things. There were several times that he took a 5-foot-long piece of wood and carved a chain of about 50 links out of that one piece of wood. And I still admire the intricacy and complexity of what he did. Our stewardship theme this year is taking the next step. And often a barrier to us getting started in taking the next step in new areas of service or ministry or involvement is that we don't think we know how to do something, or we don't feel totally prepared. We find ourselves right on the threshold of our comfort zone, and we're reluctant to take that step. But we need to remember, when we do something new in ministry, God will bless those we serve, and He will bless us. Remember the story of the boy who shared his loaves and fishes with Jesus. He didn't have lunch for everybody. He had something to start with, but God was able to take it and multiply it to bless others. Also think about the disciples when they were called. Were these 12 seminary-trained, guys? They came from all walks of life, and they probably weren't ready the first day they started, but Jesus made them ready, and He was able to multiply their ministry. Over time, I myself have been faced with going into involvement or ministry and service feeling unprepared. A few examples I can think of. I remember when I was in Knoxville in college and somebody asked me to help with the nursery. I didn't really feel prepared for that. I knew how to keep everybody safe. That was about it. When Kelly and I moved here, we had an opportunity to work with the middle school kids. And we were about 6 years older than the middle school kids at that time. And but it was a blessing. Shortly after we were here, I was asked to lead a search committee for a minister of youth. And that was a big time of growth for me. I did not feel prepared, but God showed us how to do that. Working with RAs was another thing that I wasn't quite ready for. And I can sure tell you that I was no basketball coach before I coached upward the first time. But God was able to use that as well. So as each of us looks toward 2013, let's consider what new and different areas of service God might use to help us bless others. You may already have something in mind as I talk here that you're thinking, that's something I feel like I would like to get involved in, but I'm just not sure I'm ready. And I want to encourage you, if you do, to reach out and take that step of faith. If you don't have anything in mind, in your bulletin, there's an insert here that has a list of all kinds of ministry opportunities for involvement. Each of these are things that members of our church serve. What a blessing to be part of a church family where we've got this many things going on and where there are so many ways that we can serve God, so many different talents, so many different abilities we can take advantage of. So let's take the next step in ministry together, and in doing so, let's be open to something new and different. Because God might just use that role and us to carve something remarkable. Thank you.